Today's podcast is sponsored by lighthousepowerbusiness.com.
June 27, Ken Jacobs.
You are expendable. Survive that lie and live. U.S. Army Private First Class Ken Jacobs tried peering out of the tall sides of the boat. All he could see were more boats, like the one he was in with his best friend Danny, and the scores of other soldiers. He couldn't see the stretch of beach in Normandy, but he knew they had to be just minutes away from the French coastline. Gunfire and explosions crackled around them, but in his ears, his pounding heart almost deafened him. Suddenly, Commanding Officer Wright appeared on the deck. The captain grabbed a soldier by his uniform, jerked him close, and shouted in his face, "You are expendable." He released the soldier, and the guy staggered backward. The captain spun and faced the tight group in the boat. "You are all expendable. That beach is our mission. You will go there, and there will be more soldiers following you, and there will be more soldiers following them. Take that beach. Follow the mission." The boat landed. Ken turned to his friend. "See you on the beach." Explosions all around him. Ken focused on moving forward. Half ran, half stumbled across the beach. All around him, soldiers dropped, and Ken had to hop over them and maneuver around them, still heading forward. Danny ran up just ahead. But that instant, a hidden mine exploded, and Danny flew backward. When he landed, this man who had been his friend was now unrecognizable. Ken froze. His horror almost overwhelmed him, but he remembered the mission, put his head down, and pushed farther up the beach. Ken survived D-Day, the Normandy invasion, a great victory for the Allied forces in World War II. Eventually, Ken went home and he married a pretty nurse. But in his head, he kept hearing the words of his captain. He was expendable. Why hadn't he died with Danny and the other brave men? Did God have a mission for him? Ken began to ask God, "What do you want me to do? Show me where to go." And God did. God led him to prepare for Bible translation work at a Bible college in Minnesota, his home state. After finishing college, Wycliffe Bible translators approached Ken and his wife with a challenge. Would they go to the impossible people? Missionaries had gone before them and tried to bring the gospel to this threatening, closed people group in the jungles of Chiapas, Mexico. The Chamulan people were not above killing outsiders and anyone else who threatened their belief system of witchcraft and superstition. Ken and his wife did go and live with the Chamulan people for 50 years. They adopted a young Chamulan boy as their own son. Many who believed in the good news the Jacobs brought were killed or imprisoned, or their homes were burned. Still, the gospel spread and the Chamulan church grew. One time, Ken had an opportunity to tell his story of how a World War II veteran came to spend his life in a Mexican jungle. In the middle of his story, Ken passionately grabbed a visitor by his lapels and shouted in his face, "Christ was expendable. He was expendable for you. You were his mission." 1 Corinthians 16, 19, and 20. Do you not know that your body is the temple of the Spirit who is in you, whom you have from God, and that you are not your own? For you have been bought with a price. Therefore, glorify God in your body. What kind of a mission has God assigned to you? You are not expendable. Believe that truth and live. Hello, friends. My name is Blake Maddox. I'm the Executive Director of 365 Christian Men. Today is June 27th, and our story is about Ken Jacobs. We've all probably heard lots of stories about World War II and the battles that were fought and the tragedy and horrific things that men and women experienced. Today's story is about a man who survived D-Day. He didn't just survive D-Day, but he actually saw friends die in those battles and in those conflicts. But he heard something that shaped his life for years to come, even decades to come. And it was as they were approaching the beach at Normandy, their commander said to them, Every one of you men is expendable. Let that sink in for just a minute. The idea or the thought that your life is not valuable can scar you. If it's not for years, it could be literally for a lifetime. And Ken heard those words, your life is expendable. Thank God that's not what Jesus says. Your life was bought with a price. Jesus knew you, loved you, and died for you before you were even born, before the foundation of the world. But I want to speak specifically today to maybe you as a man are struggling with some identity. Maybe you heard somewhere along the line that you're expendable. In other words, your life doesn't matter. Your life is not worth something. Ken went on to do amazing things with his life. He and his wife were missionaries to a tribe in Mexico for over 50 years. And he had the opportunity to tell people that they were worth something, that their life was valuable, that Christ died for them. And so my challenge today is for each of us to remind ourselves of what Jesus actually says. Not what others might have said, but what Jesus actually said. God bless you. I hope this challenge is a great reminder to you as it was for me.
Today's podcast is sponsored by lighthousepowerbusiness.com. Get your free strategy session valued at $1,000. Get expert advice and take your business to the next level. Visit lighthousepowerbusiness.com to schedule your session today.